right. Well, Ben, thanks for joining me tonight. I know it's late for you, but I appreciate the opportunity to bring you in and let you kind of talk about your craft, the company, the products, the girls. I think it's exciting. I don't know if you've done any of these before, but I know you're streaming now. I know you've got the Patreon and the website, which we'll talk about. But it's exciting to get you like kind of live for everybody to be able to ask you questions about this, about your product.
Yeah, it's really cool. Thanks for having me. It's yeah, first time I've ever been interviewed.
Yeah.
Unless it's for a job or by cops, but
Oh well,
won't talk
that's
about
true.
that.
So, as I'm getting to the list of questions I've got for you here, why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you into, what led to ritual casting, what got you into um, sculpting, specifically this style of sculpting, but what got you started? How did you get here?
When it comes to sculpting, sort of 3D is something I've been dipping in and out of for well a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to when I really started, it's probably about sort of 10 years ago. Up until then, I'd done mostly illustration, 2D art, digital painting, that sort of thing. Bit of concept art, but 3D had always been a bit boring. And then ZBrush came out with 3D sculpting, and then I just kind of got absorbed in that.
Sure.
Did a few things for some video game stuff along the way, but really got into it when 3D printing kind of became a thing.
Sure.
I think it's sort of probably when the Photon really first came out, and when the Form 2 kind of came out, I think, because I kind of looked at that and I thought, yeah, that's actually really good quality. That'd be really good fun to do. So yeah, that was pretty much it really. As soon as 3D printing became a thing, I just started working towards it. Spent about a year playing around with a Pia Poly Moai, which was an absolute nightmare, but I learned a lot from it.
Sure.
Then I switched over to a frozen shuffle and sort of learning 3D printing as well as applying sculpting to it, and that's kind of led to today, I guess.
So, how long?
And sorry, Carol.
No, go ahead.
So I've always loved badass female characters.
Okay.
Things like Sarah Connor and Ripley, and so I just enjoy making badass female characters.
Yep, and I'm going to be able to show off 4 of them tonight. They're in different, of course, they're in different stages of subassembly because I haven't painted them yet, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the painting aspect of it while you're talking about the sculpting aspect of it. But I'll be able to show some of. I think one is one of your most recent ones, right, Claudia? But
yeah.
So I'm gonna show a few of those after we get through kind of these questions, but. So you said you like the badass female characters. Is that really just kind of where the inspiration comes from, like the Sarah Connor and any other strong female characters from like fantasy and sci-fi shows, or?
Yeah, pretty much. It's I've always enjoyed sort of hard-boiled detective kind of noir kind of stories.
Okay.
You've got the typical hard-boiled detective in his office, and you have the femme fatale, sort of walk in,
of course,
or rather, she came to my office like a scarlet hurricane, that kind of thing. It's just characters who have a bit of gravity to them. I guess they're sort of not just looking cool and interesting, but being very capable and independent.
Okay.
And I love that in all heroes and heroines. But also just enjoy sculpting the female form.
Of course.
Because who doesn't?
Yeah, and on your Twitch channel, you do a lot of explanation. I mean, you're not necessarily teaching every step, but you're very vocal in explaining a lot of the stuff, as well as showing some of the shortcuts you've used for ZBrush with posing your models and everything like that. And a lot of the work I've seen you do is specifically for your Patreon content, your website content. But do you do any custom work for anybody, or is it mostly just all of the energy going into the Patreon right now?
At the moment, mostly Patreon.
Okay.
I have had people interested, and there are projects on the horizon, near the horizon as
Hmm.
well. It's mostly a case of because I'm still doing full-time work,
Of course.
so everything I'm doing for Patreon is done around work. So if I'm not actually at work, I'm either doing sculpting or sleeping.
That yeah. Yeah, I know.
um,
I've heard you many times saying, "Oh, it's late. I've got to get to bed." So, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much. I don't know what free time is right now, but when it comes to doing custom work, there's going to be probably about 2 months' time, 3 months' time. I'll be taking some on. So whether that's some of the projects kind of panning out a bit more,
Of course.
or taking on commissions and custom work. So I'll be pretty much open to business then.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm sure there's plenty of people in chat that are excited to hear that because what streamer doesn't want their own avatar into a 3D design?
That'd
And
be pretty cool.
and we do have quite a few people in chat. So if you do have questions for Ben or for me, just tag both of us, and I will try and keep up with chat as best as I possibly can to try and make sure that we can answer any of those questions. And so one of my first questions, now that we know where your inspiration comes from, um, you have your Patreon and you have your website, right? And I know right now the monthly release from Patreon the following month goes on your website. Is that really kind of the plan for what makes something suitable for your website versus like the Trove in Patreon? And for those who don't know, that is one of the benefits of being a patron for uh, Ritual Casting is that when you join that Patreon, you get access to a shared drive of a whole bunch of additional files, in addition to the monthly girl that's currently available. Do you just plan on one girl a month, and then any other work you do is Trove worthy, or is there a different plan for that?
Yeah, pretty much. I think what I use the Trove for is because pretty much my brand right now
Mhm.
is sort of femme fatales and pinups. Though since adding Johnny to the poll, spreading into male pinups as well. So um, when it comes to what goes into the Trove, it's mostly a case of something that's different, or it's something extra that I can kind of just give away to the community. So
Okay.
it might be something like a bust version of an older model, or
Hey,
one of
I've
my
been
other
asking about
pieces.
those.
Yep, there's going to be a lot more busts coming.
Okay.
So yeah, it's things like that, things which don't really fit into the release, but also either they're not too much extra work, or it's something which I've been messing around with as a little bit of a side project,
Okay.
and that gets added. That gets added as well. So
Perfect.
it might be an alien or a creature, or some other character which doesn't quite fit in with my usual theme.
Okay. And going with your theme, a lot of people will notice on the website your concept art on Patreon and your sculpts that you put out on your website. They're all colorless. They're all just the gray sculpting. And we've talked about this in your stream a little bit, but why not provide kind of a colorized digital print or a colored concept art for your work? Why do you leave them all colorless?
It's kind of twofold. The first one is time,
Fair.
uh, but also being so I know a lot of people are going to be painting them. I don't want to influence what people are actually going to paint them as. So part of it is indeed laziness, but also the main part of it is just seeing all the cool ideas that other people come up with. Whereas I don't want it to be a
Sure.
definitive sort of version. So when you have people doing things like with Cloud, you've got sort of fluorescent hair and all
Yeah.
the wacky kind of super colorful apocalyptic stuff, and then you've got the really sort of gritty, dark, leathers and all this kind of stuff. It gives a nice range,
Hmm.
and I think it gives you guys back a bit of the creativity, I suppose.
Now, as people are painting these up, are you getting images of what they're producing? I mean, I know your Discord has them, but are you kind of like saving some of these photos or?
I really should be. um, I get a lot of whips shown, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a lot of sort of finished pieces. The ones which I have seen finished, I have been downloading though. I
Okay.
know Arcus has had a couple, um, and I know uh, who else is doing them. Well, there's a bunch of people doing them, but yeah, I haven't seen any like fully finished ones yet.
Sure.
Uh, not loads of them anyway.
Sure.
But what I would like to do is sort of put a call out for anybody who has completed them to send me images, so I can sort of put together a gallery of things on Patreon, which
Like
would be quite cool. I think.
a community gallery would be really cool. And that might be really cool for people to see on the website as well. Not necessarily your art, but the interpretation of your work into what it really produces onto that canvas. What canvas
Yeah,
being the
exactly. That'd
printed
be a lot
model.
of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great fun to do that. Um, yeah, I love seeing everybody's work. It's great.
So, that brings me to the next question. If you could expand on that, what does it feel like when you have, this gray sculpted model, and then you're seeing colors come out that may or may not align with what you had in your mind? Like, what are you thinking? How does it feel to see your work take off like this?
It's really cool, and just the sorts of things that other people have been doing. It's either things which I never would have even thought of, or uh, like one of I think it's Paul in my Discord channel who was painting Claudia, and he envisioned her wearing tights or leggings.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really cool to see a different take on it. So it completely changed sort of the outfit in a way just by painting what I assumed would be flesh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, purple. So
Yeah.
yeah, it completely changes the character in a lot of respects. So I think it's really cool to see what other people interpret the character as. Sort of whether we have, say, Molly, the new boss, whether she's got a hot pink top on, or whether it's dark leather, and or whether it's like full blown in your face, punk to the max kind of stuff.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, it's really cool. It's sort of surreal at the same time. It's always fun scrolling through Instagram or something, or being on Twitch, and suddenly there's another version of something which I created months ago being created in front of you. It's
Sure.
awesome. It's great. I love it.
Have you seen anybody do conversions or kind of reinterpret the actual physical nature of the model? Like changing, well, not necessarily changing an arm position because of the way it's sculpted, but changing some of the accessories, changing the basing, stuff like that. Have you seen those kinds of variations?
I have seen some really cool base modifications. Things like puddles being added with resin,
Mm-hmm.
flocking and all that kind of stuff. So what I envisioned as sort of maybe a bit of a wasteland got turned into more of a grassland kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I don't think there's been any conversions that I can think of. Nothing off the top of my head. I know there's been a few modifications made with, I think, the blade in Claudia's hand,
Okay.
but I'm not sure what kind of mods were made to that because I never actually saw it.
Yeah,
So
I don't know why, but I can definitely see some people trying to make more of like a a blade for more like Final Fantasy VII kind of look. Don't know why,
yeah,
but I could just see a big long like sword sticking out over her shoulder.
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'd definitely love to see that.
I wish I could do it. I'm happy with the blade as it is, so I'm gonna leave that one the same. But when I get over to Claudia, I'm gonna talk about like my view of her base. So, but I want to talk about your newest project that you're just wrapping up with. And that's
Hmm.
Felicia, right? So this is gonna be. I guess she's kind of steampunky if you look at her arm. She definitely
Yeah,
fits
yeah.
that. So she's a little She's got, I think this is the most variations you've put into a model to date, and probably the most crazy detail you've put into the model to date.
Yeah, pretty much. Apparently, I'm a bit of a masochist and gave myself 36 variations of
Yeah,
the model in total. When it comes to mixing and matching some of the parts as well, I'm pretty sure that blows up the number like well
sure,
over 100 combinations.
sure.
Um, but I don't want to think about that.
So and Felicia, so she's kind of she's got two pistols.
Hmm.
Do you remember the names?
I do. We have Pride and we have Penance.
Yeah, I was just testing you.
Penance is the one in her right hand, and Pride is the one in
Oh,
her left hand.
okay.
So
You finished the inscriptions.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're right there.
So we have a fox girl, so she's gonna have fox ears and a fox tail coming out of her skirt. There's a cat girl variation, which is cat ears
That's right.
and cat tail, and then the human form. Then you've also got the combination where they're going to be suitable and not suitable for work. Do
Yep.
they differ based on cat, fox, or human for those not suitable versions, or is it all the same?
It's all the same.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna sculpt on like what was it, six boobs for
Hmm.
a cat girl.
that would be uh, that would be
Yeah,
more Games Workshop style with some of their.
it might be a little bit too extreme a modification that
Hmm.
one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much a case of the interchangeable parts are the head and the sort of hip section.
Hmm.
So you got the hip from the just below the belt to the bottom of the holster thigh
Yep.
straps. So those parts are interchangeable, and each piece, every single piece, bar the holsters and the sort of boot knife, is they're all magnetized.
Yep.
So they all have magnet wells. So if you want to switch them around, you can easily. If you want to, dry fit everything for I don't know zenithal priming and such, you don't have to worry about putting them together. Just get some 6x3 magnets, and yeah, away you go.
Yep. Now, one of the interesting things about her is, since some people provided feedback, and this is the thing that I really like. This is one of the reasons why I got really involved in the Patreon. Is some of your patrons don't necessarily like the gun style; they like more of the fantasy style. So you did a quick modification and then changed the guns to hand crossbows. Right, so she's dual wielding crossbows and another variation, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, it was very easy for you to do. It was very minor. It's still mostly the pistol with a little bit of an adjustment, but adding in that extra little piece to give both sides, right, fantasy and sci-fi people, something to have with this model, is just amazing. Now, when you break this apart for printing, is it the hands that are? Is it going to be just the fist holding the weapon is what's separate, so you can magnetize those?
Um, not the wrists.
Okay.
It's mostly because I couldn't really magnetize that. It's a little bit too small a
Sure.
joint. I did think about doing that, but I try and hide seams as much as I possibly can. So what I've actually done is I do have. I don't know if the camera can actually see
Uh
that.
oh, we're test
That
printing already.
is, yeah, this is one of the test prints. There is a second version coming out. There's a few minor issues to figure out. But we have a magnet in the back. You can see that there, and in the torso, which I actually snapped a part of, we have a magnet there, and there we go. So super satisfying. I haven't glued in the magnet yet, but we see we have the crossbow version here as well. So and that haven't put a magnet in here yet, but again that kind of fits on there as well.
Yep.
So
And
yeah, it's not at the wrist, but it
sure.
is at, well, they're all divided in two.
Sure.
So
Sure. Easy to swap out. You're basically just having to print one part one way or the other, or both if you want to switch between the two. So That's really
Yep,
cool.
that's right. Yeah,
Knowing me and my friend being, right down the road with a printer, I would more than likely just print one of each and just paint them separately.
sounds like good. I mean, I've test printed both anyway. So we
Yeah.
uh, have the right arm with pennants, and we also have the crossbow
hmm
variation of pennants as well.
Now, were you able to separate the gun out in the 3D file to just allow people to print just the guns and blow them up a little?
Yep, they're actually included at 1-to-1 scale.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So
That's gonna be cool. Because I really want to
you're gonna
put
have
pennants
a
in
big
front of the
printer.
bust. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I want to put because I think I got lucky. I just happened to hear people talking about pride this and pride that, and I'm like, and I just threw out the word penance just popped into my mind, and
it's a good
so
name.
yeah,
Yeah, it definitely
it
stuck.
just clicked. So I'm really hoping, and what in my mind, I might just print the standard bust, and I'm going to talk about your busts versus the full models too, but I might just take that gun, blow it up a little bit, and then attach it somehow to the base of the bust, the plinth that it goes on. So her torso is up on the plinth, and then her gun is just there on the stand. That'd be really
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be cool.
So
One thing when it comes to the base is um, I'm not going to include it as sort of part of the base,
mhm.
but there is a little section where you can hang the pistols if you want to.
Okay, that'll be really
Um,
cool.
so yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Um, let's see what, and I'm gonna make you tell everybody this since you don't like to. What what look do you have in mind for her? Now, we talked about it on stream, but what were you picturing when you made her concept in color?
Now I'm going to taint everybody's imaginations. Um, when it comes to a torso, sort of her weave vest kind of thing, I was picturing a similar scheme as Triss Merigold in The Witcher, with a white and blue with blue
hmm
stripes. Then sort of maybe a deepish red, sort of scarlet, the corset top thing she's got on. As for the trousers, or I say trousers, more like stockings, I should say.
Sure.
They're meant to be doe skin,
Okay.
so probably maybe a really pale brown or maybe a white. Um, it should be colourful, I think.
Okay.
I think it should be quite a colourful character, and of course the robotic arm, the clockwork arm, that yeah, that would be probably maybe brass or something with a bit of a goldy sort of burnished
Okay.
sort of color, I think.
Like a
Um,
like a bronze crafted or brass crafted kind of piece that's got some gold etching on it.
yeah,
Okay.
maybe with some tarnishing as well, that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
thing. So you get a nice sort of burnished kind of metal look. Now,
Okay.
I don't want to see anybody doing that.
hmm
um,
Yeah,
no
everyone's
cheating.
gonna paint the box art now, right?
Everyone forget that.
um,
um, but yeah, that's kind of what I had
okay.
in mind. Anyway, I'm not sure about hair color, but
Fair.
I do like redheads, so you know.
Yeah. And I definitely have some plans for a redhead that I'm gonna show after this next question. Um, your next design, right? So the
Mhm.
poll is pretty much done. It's pretty clear who's gonna win. So I think what Maya has won the vote, and in June we'll get to watch you sculpt um, a very different concept for a female pinup. So what interesting little twists and you're chuckling because we've talked about this a little bit. So what kind of twists do you have in mind as you designer? And I mentioned with some of some very specific components, I was picturing a dark purple and red kind of design. I wanted to know if I was actually accurate in this. So once you describe your plan, then you can let me know if I got the colors right. Because I love trying to guess your colors since you don't really show us any of them.
So yeah, mine's going to be an interesting one. She's a little bit the larger lady, which it's got. I like having different body shapes to play with because well, when you just get the standard Barbie, it just gets pretty boring. but yeah, Maya. The whole idea is that she is a Kraken priestess. So she essentially, you know, appeases the Kraken so that it doesn't. Let's put it that way,
Hmm.
so that it doesn't, destroy ships along shipping lanes and that kind of thing.
Fair.
So there's going to be tentacles, and the base itself, I'm picturing it as, obviously quite wet with seaweed and that sort of thing. Obviously eroded rock, but the most interesting part, which I'm really interested to see what you guys do with it, is sort of the surrounding for the base.
Hmm.
So I will say the model that you see in the concept isn't going to be the only thing you're going to get with it. There will be additional tentacles, which will be freestanding, so you can make your own dioramas. You can do that sort of sheer fronted resin kind of block if you really want to go into the water detail. I think she's got a lot of potential for interesting, interesting dioramas,
Yeah,
especially if you go like, playing with resin water and such.
I have 3 or 4 different bottles of styles to do with resin water. You have no idea. I mean, you saw how like excited I got in our chat the other day. But if you've got tentacles coming up out of the water, you have resin water dripping off of it. You
Yeah.
can use some sort of gloss, technical paints to make the tentacles look very shiny as if they just came out of the water. Um,
Yep.
so what color
Yeah.
what color did you envision the tentacles? I know you're avoiding it.
You noticed that, did you?
Yeah.
Um,
You're going to decide this was a
um,
mistake to do. And you'll be like, nope, we're done. Stop asking about colors.
well, I don't know. Is my internet breaking up?
Yeah.
Is no, no. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a spoiler. When it comes to the tentacles, I am going to be doing a couple of larger ones, which kind of come out from the back to sort of
Mhm.
almost like a heart in a way.
Oh,
Sort of
that's cool.
creepy tentacly kind of heart. um, but I don't think you were too far off with the sort of purpley red
Okay.
kind of color. However, I challenge anyone to do a bit of like, is it the spotted octopus or something, where you have the different sort of almost like eye patterns all the way over the
Oh,
surface.
okay.
Um, so that's a challenge to anybody who wants to take that one up. So yeah, that's consider that the challenge.
I think Chad
And
is
if
saying
anybody
it's
does
called
it,
a
I will
Yukota.
be. Is that
Yukota,
it?
maybe. Um, so yeah, lots of
Clearing
ideas.
octopus.
And in the concept art, right, you just have her on a wooden platform with 2
Yeah, sort
pieces
of
of wood
maybe
coming up, and
rocked
she's
with.
chained. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of when it came to sort of the lore behind it. I think we had a bit of a chat on Discord about it, because it's having the chains is cool. It's kind of sort of part of the original concept as
Hmm.
well. But I like the idea that the whole thing is a mutual ritual in a way.
Uh-huh.
Funnily enough, a ritual. So it's not something which she's not there against her will. So what I was planning on doing as well is doing a version where, for those who aren't happy about chains, or just it turns them off or whatever, have an option where she is just holding on to ropes, just kind of as a uh, something to stabilize it kind of thing.
Sure. And
So
that's fair.
that's
Yeah.
going to be an option as well.
Yeah, and
So
that goes back to you being open to all audiences, having suitable for work, not suitable for work, having some more racy kind of looks, but then also some more appropriate kind of looks to make everybody kind of comfortable. Um, and looking at that concept art, I'm hoping that I can at least print a large cylinder base where I can put her up on that platform, a few centimeters up, and then we were talking with those tentacles attached to the base and all that. I can build up an entire resin pool around it, so the tentacles appear underwater. seaweed and rocks and all sorts of stuff to just make like, what, an inch or two of resin water for you to see into. And then right above that surface is the platform and her standing on it. So, um,
Yeah,
it,
that's kind of what I sort of envisioning, hoping that
yeah.
you guys would do. To be honest,
So
it's I'm going to
fingers,
try and yeah, I'm going to try and accommodate it as much as I possibly can,
sure,
keeping in mind I'm limited by print size,
of
print volume,
course.
because I have to meet the sort of lowest common denominator of the 5.5 inch
Uh-huh.
printers. So not everyone has an FDM printer, so I'll figure out something. I think when it comes down to the actual, the actual base
Mhm.
itself, I will have to make a few concessions
Sure.
to make it possible. But I think you guys will be, you know, ingenuitive enough to kind of figure it out.
Well, my fingers are crossed for just whatever base you make, the same size, same diameter base, just flat and smooth, and that
Yeah,
so I can sculpt up the platform that she mounts on to make my own low water base. So, if I don't get it, I'll just make the base in that diameter and make some cool creations in the tank. That'll be fun. But yeah, and
yeah.
chat's asking for a bonus Kraken.
Yeah, that's my missus saying that. Don't give them ideas, Amy.
She's gonna come in the room. uh,
Oh, she's over there. She's right there.
oh, uh,
Um, but yeah, it's going to be a fun one,
okay.
and I think overall it's going to be a fairly easy sculpt overall, because a lot of it's going to be cloth simulation. And
Mhm.
one thing I really want to do with this is kind of add a bit of uh, sort of the clinginess to like wet cloth in a
Yep.
way. So the more adventurous painters out there can try their hand at some sheer cloth
You really do
and
like
see if we can get
punishing yourself, don't you?
that. Well,
Yeah.
art is suffering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it you got to suffer fear art or something like that?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've got to make sure I do that.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay, so I've stalled enough. I want chat to be able to ask some questions and make some comments. Um, and by the way, I was told, I was corrected. It's Yukatoa was the name of it, and it was a Critical Role reference that someone in chat put about the tentacles. But I'm gonna save my favorite for last. I'll start with what I thought used to be my favorite, and this is a top-down camera, so you're gonna see the base first, right? So I apologize. Some people will get views that might seem inappropriate at first, but this is tacked
They're
on.
the best views.
I had somebody in a live chat the other day come in, and all they saw was a butt um, on Claudia, and they were like, "Is that gonna violate terms of service?" But we turned the model around and I showed them all the cloth. They're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. So the head
Yeah,
is tacked on, right? And I'll explain that in a second. In fact, all of this is mostly tacked on because I want to paint it separately. All right, I like painting in subassemblies. So this model is called Engineered Curves. I love the art names of them as opposed to the actual names of the
yeah.
females.
I should
But
I should probably come. I should probably actually come up with the actual titles before
mhm.
before I actually release them.
Yeah,
Because at first they get given a character name,
hmm,
and then afterwards they they kind of get named for the shop.
yeah.
It's funny to see, actually. You forgot the support on the necklace as well.
Oh no. You know what?
Yeah,
I actually thought, honestly, with the way it looks like one of those necklaces where the charm comes down and then you've got a strand of chain below it. It honestly looked that way.
yeah. You're like the fourth person this week I've seen.
Well, I'll pull it off, but I was like thinking that's just gonna be part of the silver chain or something. That was
I mean, you can make it part of that if you
that's
want.
it. It honestly, like it looks like it. It really does.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's just a random support because there's a bit of an island there. So,
sure.
um, yeah, it only needs to be a small one.
Yeah. So, and this is an interesting one because she's got. I love how I was really worried on how this wrench would fit over her shoulders, but there's like a groove in her back that it fit perfectly. It rests on there very well. As a matter of fact, her head fell off because it was tacked on, right? Because I'm gonna paint her head separately. It'll be easier for me to get around to some of the details underneath the hair. But this went on very well. The one thing that really surprised me when my friend handed me the pieces that were printed was you punished all of us by giving all of the separate pieces, and you're gonna laugh because I'm leaving one very important, very tiny piece out intentionally.
I
You,
know which that piece is.
yeah. So all of these different pieces to put onto the base to make it look like scrap, and then you decided to trick us by giving us a bolt, or or
Yep.
which this
The bolt.
yeah. Um, so
The fun thing is about that, you could actually potentially use it to plug one of the vent holes in the wrench as well if you wanted to. So it's kind of
oh
multifunction.
yeah, look at that. Yeah, and I haven't even started plugging holes on this one. I just took them out of the bags and started doing a little bit of cleaning and assembly. Um, but I'm very excited to paint this one because I'm just thinking like, don't know why, but I might actually go with like uh, Battlestar Galactica style jumpsuit. You know, uh,
That'd be cool.
so I thought that'd be kind of fun. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm still quite happy with how the jumpsuit came out. Actually,
it
sort of that was my first real foray into like proper cloth
yeah,
simulation.
this was the first model I got. If I recall, yeah, it
Nice.
was. Yeah, because we were talking, and you started sending me some information, and you were like, "Yep, I just got the email," and that was who it was. I
Yep.
instantly picked that model up. So I'm very excited. She'll probably be one of the first ones to paint. And in fact, when I do a giveaway, which I might actually do a ritual casting giveaway for my birthday.
That'd be fun.
She might be it. Um, I'm keeping mine though. I might have another one printed from my friend and share that out. But now, and by the way, everybody, you can go to Patreon and sign up. It's only $10 a month to pledge for your own personal. And if you want to do merchant stuff, there's a different agreement. There's a different tier. But uh,
When it comes to merchants as well, it's worth saying if merchant tiers don't suit you straight off,
mhm,
then give me a shout because I'm more than willing to make special deals
yeah,
with people because it doesn't always fit everybody all at once. So yeah, just give me a shout and we can work something out.
yeah. So so the next one is Gunhild, and I got a picture of this in the printer while it was coming up, and my friend said, "Oh man, it looks like I'm printing a giant cookie." I love the base here though. It's just an earthy base, right? And you can put,
Yeah, I was picturing sort of snow and rock
yeah,
more than anything.
yep,
But yeah, but you can do whatever you want with it.
yep.
So
So I chose to print the axe and shield setup, and I went with a suitable for work axe and shield, mostly because I'm going to be printing these on or painting these on stream. Also, I want to display these in my room when I'm done, so I have a little one. uh,
yeah,
but this shield is massive. When I dropped the shield, of course, I knocked off the arrow. You've got one full length arrow sticking out of the shield normally, um,
yeah,
but
right in the middle.
yep. But it's a beautiful design, and it definitely was one of the first things that caught my attention next to the engineered curves design. But
Yeah, the funny thing about that shield was originally I'd kind of done it more as a traditional, sort of Viking round shield.
mhm,
I kind of looked at it and I thought, this is such a big part of the model and it's so bland. While it gives you some space to sort of do, some painted freehand designs and stuff.
yep,
It's just thought, sort of, let's just make it more. And so then I did the rim, and then I did more of the rim, and then there was the whole was it Hattie and Skull? Is it something like that? The two wolves who chase the moon and the sun through the sky.
yep.
Uh, yeah, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, let's just go all out. and I spent far too long sort of
Yeah.
actually making that out of polygons.
And you've got so much texture in the wood part of the shield too. I'm picturing a wood and I don't know, maybe copper,
Yeah,
maybe
that'd be
brass, or not necessarily bronze. I'd have to think of the era more specifically. It might be bronze as
I
opposed
think
to,
it. I think sort of Viking. I think that was probably iron. I think.
yep, possibly.
I think something like that. I might be wrong. I
Yeah.
can't quite remember.
And if that were the case, I would probably try and do something in more of like a darker gunmetal color and try and stain it down to look more like maybe a steel. Well, I don't know. Yeah, there's all sorts of metallics, and I want to really try and respect part of the age, but she is probably one of the just coolest poses because her head's even down a little bit. You know, you've got the bangs in her face, just a very relaxed but also serious pose at the same time.
Yeah, I think the one thing which I was sort of absent-mindedly kind of ended up doing was if you look at the face, especially on the sculpt, there's a bit of Angelina Jolie in there. I
Now
think
I
that
see
might have
it.
been a little bit subconscious.
Yeah,
But
now
yeah,
I see it. We
yeah, there's a bit of Angelina Jolie in there, really, with the sort of I think sort of the more squarer jaw and chin, and the larger lips. I think, but yeah,
But even in like the axe, and so I did not print the sword version, and I was told when I looked at the STL file that sword is awful thin. But I see in the sword, like you went crazy with details because I don't know if my camera's picking it up, but you can see like faint lines across. It's almost like a wrapped leather hilt or sheath.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, it's meant to have a leather wrap, and there, I don't think any printer currently would be able to actually sort of do it, but there are actually runic inscriptions on the metal bands as well. So I don't know if any printer would actually be able to put that out yet. But
I'm
I know mine didn't.
I can't. Yeah, I see a little bit in this section up here. It's very hard to
Yeah,
make
that's
out.
probably where it's most likely visible. But if you have a look on the renders, you'll see that there are actually inscriptions in there,
Yeah.
which I think it's sort of like honor and glory or something like that. Yeah, I did a bit too much research on the runes.
Wow.
Ended up going down a Reddit rabbit hole trying to find the correct
Yeah.
rune sort of layout for Odin and such.
I mean, research is research, right?
Mhm.
And then I love
When it
the etchings on
comes
the
to
axe.
research. Oh yeah, yeah. That was the axe was pretty much inspired by the axe in God of War, the latest God of War.
Okay.
I loved how brutally heavy it looked. Um, so I figured, hell, if she can wield that, she's definitely a badass.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely not someone to mess with that sword or that axe. Um, and it was awesome how you're able to give us much more detail with some of the accessories that attach, so we can get around and paint parts of her, like the sword has a mounting point. I mean, even the little satchel and the horn, just you know, go on there really well. I had them dry fit for a little bit, but I keep moving these around so much that I keep knocking it loose.
There's a ton of detail in the metal bands of the horn as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's detail which won't come out on current printers unless maybe you're looking at getting a 4K screen on a 5.5 inch printer.
Like the
Um,
Saturn that's coming out that announced a 4K screen.
yeah, I think that's at a much larger size though. You should be able to see faint traces of the detail on
Yeah,
there, but
yeah. I see
yeah,
the
it's
two
just
bands have something.
yeah, if I remember correctly, it should be sort of like an interlinked dragon. I think
Okay.
correctly. Can't quite remember all the
Yeah.
little things I put on.
So I'm gonna show my favorite one next. So here is Autumn, as I've called her, and I quickly put this together yesterday. And this is where someone in chat was saying I didn't realize they were so big. Okay, I have I made the same mistake because I was talking to somebody and they're like, if you could get any one model, what would you want to paint? I'm like, that one. I would want to paint that one. Well, here's what I first pictured in my mind. This size. I don't know why 1/10 showed up as this size in my mind. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, it'll be a person about this size on a tree branch. It'll be great, you know. And then
I don't do things by halves.
it
Yeah,
just
it's she could eat him.
she could, and I'm definitely gonna go with uh, so I'm gonna try and do something a little bit different. And I know for a fact you probably did not have this pictured. I'm gonna go with more of an Uma Thurman look from Batman and Robin. In fact,
Ooh,
instead of doing the flesh as flesh, um, there's some pictures where she's got very very sheer like leggings, green leggings, where you can see a little bit of like her actual Caucasian flesh tone through it. So a very very faded olive flesh tone with green mixed in, and then autumn and green leaves throughout. Um, so the very very faint olive flesh, like very kind of basic flesh with the dark green, all these etch marks that you've got in more of a dark green look is what I was picturing.
that
Um,
sounds fantastic.
yeah, poison ivy on a big tree branch is what I was really thinking. In fact, I went and Googled Uma Thurman poison ivy and found one of the movie theater photos, the graphics for that, where she's standing there in front of one of the big purple gorillas from the charity ball where she first showed up.
I think I've seen that photo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's like the inspiration. If you look at the leggings that she has on in that picture, that's definitely um
that sounds.
that's yeah. But this was 4 print beds, I think, because this
Yeah, I think
tree
it.
was gigantic.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things where I did the design and I kind
Mhm.
of thought, "Oh, it's yeah, she's got her legs bent. You could probably fit the entire print of her on one plate if you're clever."
Right. I
Then
mean,
I kind of doing the tree and I was like, "This is a big tree."
yeah, yeah. She's 5 pieces. Um,
Yep.
I mean, her legs fit right on, right? The legs each it's assembled at the knee and then at the waist. The torso and arms are all one piece, and the head goes on separately. It fit together perfectly. Um,
I'm happy to hear that. One thing I've been working on a lot recently has
right,
been the fit of the keys. Um, it can't be perfect all the time just because of the nature of resin and different print
of course,
setups and things.
of course.
But if uh, if it's close, then I'm happy.
Yep. And then I'm showing off the base for what I'm assuming had to have been Sarah Connor in your mind when you designed this, because
Yeah,
there is the
it's
Terminator right there.
yeah. To be honest, I think that's probably my favorite base, except for maybe Savage Allure with the monster head, because that's technically the base on that.
I've challenged one of
um,
my friends to paint that because he is amazing when it comes to painting like lizards and reptiles and stuff.
so you can have so much fun with lizards and the
Oh yeah.
reptiles. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing that base. That was one which Paul put some resin water sort of
In this back,
in the
yeah.
rear, um, and if I remember correctly, he actually put a flower, one of the little flower flockings, sort of growing out of the
Hmm.
hole in the skull of the Terminator.
Oh
So
wow,
that
cool.
that was pretty awesome.
And here she
Um,
is. I was hiding her for a second. So, um, in my mind, right? I know that there's a lot of Terminator style look to her. I'm a big Fallout fan, and I'm
yeah,
really a big fan of the Raiders. So I'm sitting here
yeah,
thinking like brown dirty leathers and like the leather wrappings, the rusted metal armor plates, everything like that, and just make her like what you'd expect when you run into a raider camp as one of the bosses of the camp.
yeah. It's my inspiration for Claudia was sort of a mix of the apocalyptic genres. So
Hmm.
you got some Mad Max, you got some Fallout. Mostly, it was sort of a heavy metal magazine kind of feel,
Hmm.
um, with a bit of a Louis Royo kind of style to some of the clothing,
Yep.
where it's all very wrinkled, and you're not quite sure what it's made out of. Like the shoulder pads, especially, it might be leather, it might be sort of any other sort of material, really. But also, it could be maybe something a bit more sinister, perhaps.
Yep. So I've got her arms and head separate, and actually the armor pad, right? So I can get as much of the clothing done as possible. So she's got several pieces that are kind of detachable for now. I'll eventually glue them on, of course, when it's done. But she's got this big blade, and I thought more Fallout, because it does look like it's kind of makeshift, where you put spikes on the guard here, you put an extra little knife on the back here, stuff like that. It really made me think more that she's modified it or built it up as she goes. And the leather work, which the camera's not picking it up, but the texture in this gun strap came out.
Oh yeah,
the braid came out great.
that's cool. Yeah, it's I'm glad you didn't snap it. So I think
Oh,
I
I
probably
did. I didn't
that's all right then.
realize that this. I snapped it in one spot right here, and I re-glued it. I got lucky because the supports were just fell right off, and I didn't realize because I'm using the the printer, right? We're running the eco resin through it, the plant-based
Right.
stuff. So I will tell everybody, yes, it's true. This feels really soft in texture. It's not. It's very strong, but it feels soft in texture. And something thin like this actually has a little bit of play and wiggle in it. So when I was handed this, and I started popping off supports, I noticed that the strap broke in one spot. I mean, it just went right back together easily. You can't even tell. And by the time I paint it, no one will notice.
Yeah, to be honest, when I was getting that model finished, it was a headache. I messed up the priming so badly that I pretty much ended up reprinting it.
Mm.
Once I finished off priming her, I was coming back up the stairs and tripped over the cat.
Oh no!
So the blade was broken. The something else got broken off, but
Wow.
fortunately, the resin I use is very brittle. Though it does capture a hell of a lot of detail, it is very brittle. But the upshot of that is when it does break, it's always a clean break.
Yes.
So it's really easy to put back together and hide. But yeah, it's damn cat tripping over the cats.
So I want to know if anybody in chat has any questions for Ben as well. So those are the four models that I'm showing off, and I definitely after Monday, I plan on at least starting to paint on one of these, and then getting through them throughout the course. Although I have a feeling you're going to be making them quicker than I can finish painting them, but
it seems that way.
Yeah.
It seems to have there's more STL hoarders out there than painters.
I think I'm up to like 80 gigs of STL files now. No big deal.
Nice. Yeah, it's that's nothing.
Yeah, and I don't even have a printer here, so I can't even get them all in the frame. But yeah, and a couple of my friends coming through in chat may or may not also be hoarding stuff, and some people in chat are saying they don't even have a printer, but they've got the files. Yeah.
I super appreciate it. It's really awesome. It makes me it's really humbling that everyone's so supportive. It's great. It's completely fueled me to keep going. So yeah, it's
and then
amazing.
You've got someone in chat saying that they're an STL prepper as opposed to a hoarder. That's fine.
Nice.
That's fine.
Well, you do. It's all good.
So next month you're going to be working on Maya.
Yep.
Any hints? So when you do your votes, because this is the first month I was in the Patreon, do the two other models that were on the list stay, and you just add a third concept?
That's correct. Yeah. So
any hints
I'll put
at the third one?
Well, there's sort of been a few little prods to kind of do something slightly
Sure.
less human. Obviously, I've done a succubus, and well, that's pretty much
It
looking around.
right.
Yeah,
There's
that's pretty much as far as I've gone. So
the
I
orc
think
pinup
I'm
idea, the alien pinup idea. Yeah.
there's there's definitely going to be, because for some reason spears seem to be quite popular as well.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, what I'm planning on doing is something um, something along the lines of mixing. So I'm trying to think of a character to compare, I guess. Maybe think Red Sonja mixed with Predator,
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
So I'm going for a sort of a technologically advanced huntress
Okay.
with a tribal kind of streak, I suppose. Um, so it's going to be different. So she's not going to have like a crab face or anything, because I still want to I still want the models to be attractive. So
Sure. Sure. Sure.
um, as much as I like body diversity and such, yeah, when it comes to crab faces, that's definitely not my bag.
That's fair.
Um, but yeah.
Someone in chat wants to know about what about a Wakandan warrior woman?
That's kind of the theme which I'll probably be tying in. I suppose mostly
Yeah.
sort of a traditional hunter, obviously spear hunters, especially obviously with
Right.
that being a more African tradition. So when it comes to sort of the cultural identity that I'll be putting into this sort of alien huntress kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely going to have more of an African kind of feel. There
Well,
will
that'd be
be there
cool.
will be dreadlocks. There will be sort of cool. There'll be plenty of material that can be patterned freehand. So yeah, haven't quite worked it out in my head yet. Done a few little thumbnail sketches,
Sure.
but yeah, I'll see how that comes out next week.
And I saw a question come by earlier about the swatch pattern. So with the last two, or with the most recent release on your Patreon, plus the one that's coming out in June, you are providing a print you can just put the different patterns on. Is that the plan going forward for all
Yeah.
Patreon models?
So thanks to the lockdown, honestly, the lockdown's probably been the best thing for my career to have ever happened, I
Sure.
suppose. Because it's given me the time to sort of borrow company time, or misappropriate company time, I suppose,
Sure.
to sort of do additional things.
Sure.
Um, and I haven't made any concrete promises or updated my tiers yet, just because I wanted to make sure I can sustain it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to promise and under-deliver. I'd rather, make my usual promise and over-deliver. Going forward, what I want to achieve, and if I can manage it this month, then I'll be able to manage it for following months, no problem, is to have my full release of the 110 model with safe for work, not safe for work versions, and any variations that I make myself suffer through. And the other thing to come along with it is going to be bust version.
Okay.
So I will be making bust versions of each model to come out as well, which will have a simple base, which is your typical kind of just a standing base. You could just spray paint it black, nice and easy, or a more themed special base to go along with it.
Right.
So in Felicia's case, it's a configuration of cogs and gears with sort of a wood base. So you could probably you should be able to cross her pistols in front of it if you wanted to.
Sure.
And when it comes to anything else to come along with that, as long as it's appropriate for the model, there will be texture swatches.
Okay.
So if there's a lot of material, sort of like plain material, then it might not be appropriate.
Like
But if
Maya,
it's
I don't see a lot of textures. Maybe a little bit, but I don't see a
yeah,
ton.
there's probably going to be a bit of weave, maybe
Mm-hmm.
on sort of some of the bands around her arms. Perhaps there's probably going to be some maybe some engravings and such.
Yep.
And maybe on the base there's going to be some runes and all that kind of thing. So there's always going to be some texture. It's just, I think Felicia's probably the best example of such a vast mix of textures.
Yeah.
Sumi had some of the most intricate, I think. But I think once you see the power arm of Felicia, you're probably going to want to practice a bit.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially if you're doing non-metallic metal. So.
Oh, yeah. No thanks. That's going to be all true metallics. A little bit of
Yeah.
weathering, a little bit of scratching. True
Yeah,
metallic.
I'm seeing what everybody does with that. It's going to be good. So, I did sort of end up doing ridiculous levels of detail on that arm, mostly because I was procrastinating to avoid doing the hair. So I went a bit overboard.
That's fine. You know,
But yeah.
And I am seeing chat talk a lot about some of the older models warranting a bust. And I know, like, so augmented beauty, that's the main picture of your website, right? Her pose is still the main picture.
She was technically my first release in a
Mhm.
way. Like my first month, because of the way I structured my work, where it's you have the poll and you vote, and then you get that the sort of month after. So it's kind of almost like a leapfrog kind of thing.
Yep.
That was a model which I'd been working on to sort of test 3D printing. So it was more a case of it was an experiment, but it's also something I could release at that point while I was working on it on Savage Allure at the time, because that was my official full first month's kind of proper release sort of thing.
Sure.
And Augmented Beauty is sort of, I don't know, I can't replicate how I did the renders for it. I don't know what I did. It was that long ago. And the renders came out nice, so it has a nice, sort of a nice feel for the website and things. So she's going to be bustified, hopefully this month. I should be able to get, because I've also got the Arbiter coming out as well this for June, for hitting 200 patrons. Which, thank you, by the way, everybody. It's amazing. I handed my notice in on Monday, so I'll be going full time in a couple of months. So I will be releasing a bust of my previous models each month alongside the normal release, and they will go into the Trove. So yeah, it's
that's exciting. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it, and you know, and what we've talked about offline with plans for Maya and going forward. You know, I'm really stoked, and honestly, for some reason, I really am looking forward to Johnny eventually winning a vote. It's not that I don't like the other female characters, but you know,
I don't think it's far off, to be honest.
Right.
I think maybe in another couple of months when Cyberpunk's on the horizon.
Yep.
Released in September, maybe that'll drive a bit his way. But I definitely will be sort of including at least one male pinup alongside females as my usual two, because it's just one brand. But given the option for male pinups is something I've wanted to do for a while, and it's been more well received than I actually thought it would be. So yeah. But if we'll end up with Johnny at some point anyway, I imagine.
Of course. So well. So, I mean, that's everything for me. These are fantastic models. I'm still just over the moon that the detail in these, the work in these, and the fact that you're able to make one of these a month is just amazing to me.
I mean, sleeping's for the weak, so
fair. That's fair. So all right, Ben, well, I appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of these in the future, maybe at a better time for you. So
it's as I say, it's a bank holiday weekend anyway, so I don't mind sleeping in. I used to work shifts, so night shifts were it's all good.
Oh, great.
But I really appreciate the time to chat and hang out with everybody.
Yeah, well, it's been a good chat, and thank you again very much, and I guess we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Just want to say a massive thanks to the Twitch community.
Absolutely.
Say you, Ren, Just Isis. Just Dan, Nerd, everybody. The
You bet.
Twitch painting community has been such a driving force between getting me to over 200 patrons now, and it's meant so much. It's made a massive difference, and it's just super fun interacting with you all. It's fantastic.
Yep, you bet. It's been great on both sides of that. I'm sure. So.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks, everybody.